Next on Currents News, Governor Cuomo jumps into action when his motorcade passes a car accident on the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway. The funeral for the Iranian leader killed in a U.S. airstrike as threats of retaliation grow and Congress demands answers about the deadly attack.
Thousands of people united against hate after a string of anti-Semitic attacks. They're marching over the Brooklyn Bridge in solidarity. I'm Tim Harfman, and I'll have the story.
And Puerto Rico rocked by an earthquake. What worried families here in the diocese are doing. The news starts right now. Good evening, I'm Lydia Serrani. Tonight we would begin with an amazing show of solidarity. New Yorkers rallying around the Jewish community after a string of anti-Semitic attacks. The city's top Catholics, Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio and Cardinal Timothy Dolan, helped lead the way. Currents News' Tim Harfman reports.
2, 4, 6, 8, and no violence and no hate.
The message was loud and clear. Throngs of demonstrators jammed the Brooklyn Bridge Sunday, united with the Jewish community. The show of solidarity comes after a string of anti-Semitic attacks in Brooklyn, Rockland County, and Jersey City. Sarah Galina is upset.
As families, members who are Holocaust survivors, this is not something we expected to have to talk to our young children about.
Her sons, ages 7 and 4, carried signs just as others did. Across the bridge, community and faith leaders showed their support, including Brooklyn Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio and New York's Cardinal Timothy Dolan.
We worship the same God. How can we be in any way against one another? We need to help one another.
Let's re-emphasize the twin pillars that both Jews and Christians believe in: the sacredness of human life and the dignity of the human person.
Before the march, Governor Andrew Cuomo announced an extra $45 million in funding to protect religious institutions.
Racism and anti-Semitism is anti-American.
And according to the NYPD, 25,000 people marched over the Brooklyn Bridge and met here in Cadman Plaza. So much so that even 2 hours after this rally started, people were still making their way over the bridge, all with one message: to stand up against hate. In Cadman Plaza, Tim Harfman, Currents News.
New video tonight shows Governor Andrew Cuomo taking action to rescue a driver from a wrecked van on the B.Q.E. The governor can be seen right there lifting the driver of a delivery van from his cab. The vehicle was almost flipped onto its side and resting on the median of the highway. The governor had just left a Midtown event when he reached the accident scene about 1:15 this afternoon. Cuomo's staff posted this video on Twitter. There's still no word yet on the man's condition or his name. Now for the latest on the Iran crisis. The Islamic regime is hinting properties owned by President Trump could become targets for retaliation after the United States killed a top general. At the same time, the president is vowing Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. The escalating threats come as crowds filled the streets of Tehran this morning. Iranians prayed and also chanted "Death to America." Mourners carried Qasem Soleimani's casket to a mosque at Tehran's university. The massive funeral procession through the streets of the capital is one of the latest developments after Friday's airstrike took out Soleimani. The news is breaking in Iran, Iraq, and Washington. Camilla Bernal reports the latest.
A sea of people filling the streets in Iran Monday during the funeral services for Iranian General Qasem Soleimani. This just days after Iran's top general was killed by a U.S. drone strike at the Baghdad airport. Soleimani's daughter says her father's death will bring darker days for the U.S., and Iran has vowed revenge.
It was America that has started the war. Therefore, they should accept appropriate reactions to their actions.
Iraq's parliament voted Sunday to obligate the government to work towards removing all foreign troops from the country. Back in the U.S., thousands of troops are getting ready to deploy to the Middle East as tensions in the region continue to escalate. And President Donald Trump says if Iran tries to retaliate, the U.S. will quickly and fully strike back, and perhaps in a disproportionate manner. But House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says not so fast. She sent a letter saying the House of Representatives will introduce a vote on a war powers resolution that limits President Trump's potential military action in regards to Iran.
The power to make war resides in the Congress. The founders believe that there needed to be a check on executive power. And we know when we go into a conflict anywhere in the world in the past, we're always stronger when we are united.
In Washington, I'm Camila Bernal reporting.
And as you just saw, Soleimani's daughter Zainab spoke to thousands of mourners. She ripped into President Trump and the Jewish people and vowed revenge.
Hey, crazy Trump, you are the symbol of stupidity and a toy in the hand of the international Zionists. Don't think that by assassinating my father, everything is finished.
Zainab also said that the killing of her father will bring darker days for the United States and Israel. Iran is using the death of Soleimani to quit the nuclear deal that had clamped down on its weapons program. The government said it's lifting all restrictions on the production of nuclear fuel. This means Iran will go forward with any planned nuclear arms development and proliferation. The deal had been in place since 2016. In the wake of rising tensions in the Middle East and the threat of retaliation following the deadly U.S. drone strike, the Pentagon is sending 3,500 troops to the region. Among them, soldiers from Fort Bragg in North Carolina. Now the community there is rallying around the families of those being deployed and praying for their safe return.
We ask you, God, to give comfort where comfort is needed.
At Bahrain Baptist Church's Sunday night service, family members of soldiers being deployed were asked to stand. At least 6 members of this Fayetteville, North Carolina church are on their very first deployment. The 1st Brigade of the 82nd Airborne Division has trains for this. They run drills to go from getting that phone call to boarding a plane in a matter of hours. Still, this deployment shook families right at the end of their holidays with the first notification sent out on New Year's Eve. This military spouse may have a smile on her face, but Sunday was rough.
Oh, I've cried a lot.
She found out at lunchtime that her husband, who is already deployed at training, would be rerouted to join others in the Middle East. From Taylor Smith's perspective, he's doing all he can to support his friend who got a notice to deploy.
82nd's trying to push back his deployment date as much as possible. But his wife is a high-risk pregnancy, and, believe he's leaving somewhere around Tuesday, and his wife is due Wednesday.
Smith is a veteran, like many others at this church who know all too well what it's like to deploy. A volunteer group called Deployed Love is doing its part in building that support. They say the comfort is knowing their family at home has a support system.
I know it's scary, and we want to be able to make it a smooth flow for you and keep your kids, flowing through school year and not being stressed out as well.
Stressed out and concerned about when they'll see their loved ones again. Deployed Love started at Fort Bragg 3 years ago, organizing holiday parties, outings, and is run by volunteers. Pope Francis is growing deeply concerned over the crisis between the United States and Iran. The Holy Father is urging both sides to stand down from making threats and engage in peace negotiations. The Pope's ambassador to Iran, Archbishop Leo Bacardi, says he has been briefed the pontiff on the entire situation, and Francis is following developments closely. The Archbishop adds that the Holy Father is praying but is apprehensive about the future. At the same time, the Pope is warning about a terrible air of tension. Speaking to pilgrims in St. Peter's Square on Sunday, he didn't mention any country by name, but called on all parties to, quote, fan the flame of dialogue and self-control. The Holy Father went on to say that war brings only death and destruction. Francis invited everyone in the square to pray silently for peace. Tonight, there's a hunt on for terrorists who murdered 3 Americans in Kenya. A U.S. service member and 2 civilian contractors working for the Pentagon were killed in the attack carried out by al-Shabaab. Catholic leaders in Kenya are worried the terror could be an act of revenge linked to the killing of Iran's top general. The violence occurred at a Kenya defense base in Manda Bay, where the American military works. with the Kenyans. Now, breaking news tonight out of Puerto Rico, a strong earthquake rattled the U.S. territory this morning. Currents News' Emily Druby has been monitoring the situation all day and reports the very latest.
Homes knocked from their stilts, power lines pulled down almost to the road, and cars crushed under a collapsed home. This just some of the destruction in Puerto Rico caused by a magnitude 5.8 earthquake. It happened early Monday morning. No casualties have been reported yet, but there's significant damage to the town of Guanica. Roads have also been affected, like this one near Ponce. Several earthquakes have hit the island this past week, but this is by far the strongest. The incident causing fear among those living in the Brooklyn diocese with ties to Puerto Rico.
They're just getting over Maria, and they're rebuilding the infrastructure, and an earthquake will now take away all that hard work that was put into restoring services in the island.
NORMA HERRERA works for St. Michael's Parish in Sunset Park. She still has family in the Commonwealth.
You worry that what's happening, what's going to happen, how is it going to affect the people that are still on the island?
So much worry in a place still dealing with the trauma from the Category 5 hurricane that hit just over 2 years ago. Jorge Dominguez saw the Hurricane Maria devastation firsthand during a trip. He says having another major disaster today on Three Kings Day is especially difficult for the children of Puerto Rico.
They were kids are waiting for the sun to rise to find out what the Three Kings brought to them. And today they got really at sunrise, an earthquake. So in that sense, it's especially sad.
Instead, they woke up to cracks in their walls. In Sunset Park, Emily Druby, Currents News.
Firefighters from Canarsie, led by Chaplain Monsignor John Dunlendick and Mayor Bill de Blasio, gathered together today to dedicate a plaque to a brother they lost 1 year ago.
The plaque reads, dedicated to the memory of firefighter Stephen H. Pollard, Ladder Company 170.
Stephen Pollard had only been on his dream job for 1.5 years when he died in the line of duty after responding to a car crash on the Belt Parkway's Mill Basin Bridge. The 30-year-old firefighter fell to his death.
Having this wall and plaque here will be another constant reminder for all of us, keeping his gentle, loving, kind, and passionate FDNY spirit alive forever.
The Practicing Catholics Memorial will remain in his firehouse for eternity. And there's a lot more news headed your way, a last-minute reprieve in a life-and-death battle over the continuing care of a sick baby in Texas. Thousands deployed to the front lines of those massive wildfires devastating Australia. And it was a bright Christmas at Our Lady of Sorrows Church in Corona, thanks to the generosity of the faithful in the diocese. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us here at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, the number right there on your screen, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. For decades now, the tablet has raised money to give as many children in our area as possible a bright Christmas. This year, more than 1,000 gifts were given to families in need just in time for the celebration of Three Kings Day. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has that story from Queens.
The gifts brought by the Three Kings to Jesus Christ are why many associate his birth with presents. It's known to the faithful as the Epiphany.
It's a continuation of the celebration of Christmas, and in particular, we celebrate the time when the three kings from the east came to visit the child Jesus, following the star. There's a whole beautiful story wrapped around the mystery of the whole thing.
This year, Our Lady of Sorrows in Corona hosted Three Kings Day. There was a theatrical reenactment of the day, and afterward, families from the diocese experienced the real magic of the historical event.
Which one do you guys want? One of these? It's beautiful.
Hundreds of children received what might be their only Christmas presents.
Showing the children, that no matter what they're going through, the difficulties, the struggles that their families are going through, everything is very difficult nowadays. and I think this just brings a little bit of joy.
The annual event wouldn't be possible without the tablet and the generosity of its readers.
I'm grateful to the tablet and to readers and people who are so generous in supporting the Bright Christmas Fund, which supports so many parishes, including Our Lady of Sorrows.
There was no gold, frankincense, or myrrh, but there were games, books, and even clothing for children and their parents to choose from.
I'm very thankful for it because it shows the love that they have for the community, for the people that are involved in the community, and it unites us.
This year, because of the need in the community, more than 1,000 gifts were given to children, and every parent was sent home with a winter hat. In Queens, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Such a beautiful event. And now an update on that Bright Christmas campaign. So far, they have collected more than $98,000, and their campaign is still counting donations. They are so close to their goal of $110,000, and you can still help them reach it. Just send a check to the Bright Christmas Fund at 1712 10th Avenue in Brooklyn, or you can go to thetablet.org and click on the donate link on the home screen. A Texas baby has been given new hope for life. The Second Court of Appeals in Fort Worth has ruled 11-month-old Tinsley Lewis is to stay on life support until it makes a final judgment in the case. A judge originally ordered an end to the life-sustaining treatment last Thursday because the baby's doctors say that she is in pain and will not get any better. Bishop Michael Olson of Fort Worth has offered to provide appropriate care for Tinsley in a Catholic health care facility. Bishops across the country are highlighting the plight of the immigrants and refugees. This week marks National Migration Week here in the U.S. Catholics are uniting in prayer and solidarity with the more than 70 million people who have been forcibly displaced from their homes due to political instability, violence, and economic hardship. This year's theme is promoting a church and a world for all. For more information on National Migration Week, go to justiceforimmigrants.org. This flu season is shaping up to be the worst in decades, according to America's top infectious disease doctor. Dr. Anthony Fauci, who leads the National Institute of Allergies and Infectious Diseases, says it's on track to be the deadliest in more than 4 decades. 2,900 people have died during this flu season, according to data by the CDC. It estimates that there have been at least 6.4 million flu illnesses and 55,000 hospitalizations. Meantime, Australia is continuing to fight some of the worst wildfires in the country's history. Thousands of people have been affected and millions of acres of forest and rural land have been burned. The sky over Australia is glowing red. Bishop Shane McKinley of the Diocese of Sandhurst is asking for prayers for his homeland. This as more help to battle the raging inferno is on the way. Anna COREN shows us.
We're on board the HMAS Adelaide, Australia's largest naval vessel, which has sailed into Eden Harbour here on the south coast of New South Wales. It came in yesterday under eerie skies filled with smoke. Today it is raining and very cold, which obviously is a reprieve for the firefighters who have been fighting those bushfires raging around here. As far as this vessel is concerned, they have been brought here to conduct any evacuations and provide any assistance necessary. This Seahawk behind me, it has been conducting reconnaissance missions throughout the day, traveling up and down the coastline, looking for any communities that have been cut off from the bushfires. Now, 3,000 Australian Defence Force personnel have been deployed to assist with the bushfire crisis. The government has come under extraordinary criticism and pressure, particularly the Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison for his lack of leadership during this crisis. But the Australian Defence Force wants people to know that they are here, they are ready to help. Downstairs there are over 1,000 bunks and stretchers ready for any evacuees. There is a medical centre as well as supplies, food, water. As I say, the military says they are ready to help. These service members, they are Australians. It has been breaking their heart witnessing the scenes. They say they are proud to be here and to serve amongst the men and women fighting these bushfires.
Such devastation. Now, that was Anna COREN reporting. According to officials, 24 people have died nationwide this fire season, and almost 500 million animals have died across New South Wales due to the flames. Chaos erupted in Venezuela's opposition leader and acting president Juan Guaido was blocked from entering the National Assembly yesterday, attempting to climb the fence of the legislative palace. He was there to officially open the first session of 2020 and elect an assembly leadership, but members of the National Guard who support disputed President Nicolas Maduro blocked him from entering. Meanwhile, the Socialist Party handed the presidency to legislator Luis Parra, but that was invalidated. Opposition leaders then re-elected Guaido at the headquarters of a newspaper. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo congratulated Guaido on winning the second term. Still to come on Currents News, how Pope Francis showed up unannounced at the funeral of a friend and then what he did next. And thieves may have tried to steal the joy of Christmas at one Catholic parish, but an outpouring from the community wouldn't let that happen. Pope Francis attended the funeral of a friend on New Year's Eve, and no one was expecting him. Clergy and parishioners at Rome's Church of St. Joseph didn't know the Holy Father would even be there. He came in, laid flowers on the casket of his friend, 95-year-old Professor Maria Grazia Mara, who died the day before, and then he just sat in a pew. When his presence was discovered, he was asked if he wanted to celebrate the Mass. Pope Francis declined, saying he simply wanted to pay his respects to his friend. Finally tonight, a pair of thieves tried to steal Christmas from a church in California, but the community wouldn't hear of it. An outpouring of giving helped make a planned celebration of Three Kings Day happen, putting smiles of joy on the faces of children in need. Currents News' Tim Harfman has a story.
Prayers have been answered at this church.
I actually ran because I wanted to be the first one to get it, but then I saw a bunch of people already there.
A race to receive a toy, excitement that seemed impossible 2 weeks ago. That's when thieves stole this box with at least $2,000 inside. The money was meant to buy toys for children in celebration of the Epiphany, or Three Kings Day.
For a lot of people, I think it's a mixture of sadness and anger, but I think that pretty quickly people simply said, we're going to make it right.
The church's associate pastor, Father BROCATO, says this was a blessing in disguise, unifying this community. For weeks, people contacted Our Lady of Guadalupe Church in San Jose, California, ready to donate. The church received nearly $14,000, surpassing its goal. Thanks to generous donors, dozens of children from all ages received presents.
I'm very grateful for what I got.
This child even had a message for the thieves who are still on the loose.
You have to work for it, not just go to a random community and steal their money.
Now this church has bigger plans with the money that was left over.
With the extra money that is still in the GoFundMe collection, we're going to be able to help out kids that go to Catholic schools. We're going to be able to give them some scholarships.
Tim Harfman, Currents News.
The spirit of Christmas alive and well. Well, that is Currents News. I'm Lydia Serrana. Thank you so much for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.